Okay, let's talk about the pre-confirmation setup now. And this is becoming one of my favorite trades, one of my favorite setups. We actually use two different data sets for this. One data set is our contextual analysis data set. It kind of gives us an idea of better idea of directionality and some other aspects. It's kind of what we use more in the earlier stages, the transition period, the DR formation, and then the pre-confirmation period. So the pre-confirmation period is this time frame from after 10:30. So we want to come after 10:30 to confirmation. That's when we're looking for our particular setups. And what we need is we need a probability of direction. And hopefully it's a high probability of direction one way or the other. The third element is we need levels of pre-confirmation. Okay, so just like we have levels for time and price, where once you confirm, where are we going to come back to, we have levels for where does price kind of go to within this range before it takes off and goes down. And so I'll show you what I mean by that in just a second. But these are kind of the basic rules that we have. Targeting can be a little bit flexible. Sometimes we're looking at, some major levels for targeting. Other times we're expecting confirmation. And so we can wait for confirmation and then we can target the mode or median, right? We can target that time and price target that we get from that. But let's just kind of take a look at a trade scenario. So here we have CL as an example. And what we're going to do, first of all, we're going to wait for confirmation. Now, I do need to say this probability of direction piece right here, we start to get that right about, right about here is when I have better data, or my data is pretty clear on what the direction is going to look at. So roughly around, 10 o'clock, sometimes a little bit earlier. So I have a pretty good idea here, but what I'm waiting for is a better indication of what the box formation might be. So we've talked about the box. Is it going to be a bullish box or a bearish box? And you kind of get that somewhere between 9 o'clock, 9:55 and usually around 10:10. By 10:10, I kind of have a good idea of whether or not I have a strong bias toward a long confirmation or a strong bias toward a short confirmation. Now, when you look at this, you might think, oh, I really have no idea whether this thing is going to go down or whether it looks kind of rangy right now, right? Kind of went down, took that out, went up, took that out. We could go up, we could go down, come down and test here. So from the looks of it, you really can't tell of what's going to happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait for this time period. And what we get is we get this small bullish box. Okay, I don't necessarily mind the size, but we get a small bullish box. And I'm going to take a whole bunch of data here that I can see is happening on the chart, and I put it into my application, and it cranks out for me a probability of long or short confirmation based on what I gave it. And in this case, got a little donut charts that basically say there's a 100% probability that we're going to go long, that we're going to have a long RDR confirmation. Now, here's the thing. It doesn't tell me when, and there are times that maybe we won't have a confirmation at all, and then there's times that, maybe that's the one day that actually breaks this cycle, this statistical cycle. But I have probabilities on my side, and that's what I'm trying to do, is just put probabilities on my side as much as possible. So I'm pretty confident here that we're going to have a long confirmation. Now, the next question is, where is this thing going? How deep might this thing go? And if it's a late confirmation, the later the confirmation, okay, so let's just look at our time frames here really quick. So we've got 10:30 to about 11. And then we have 11 to 11:30. Those are the confirmation periods that I really care about the most. And so if we have an earlier confirmation, right? I don't expect price to go down too deep. If we have a later confirmation, price might come all the way down to here. I don't know when confirmation is going to happen, but I do have levels. So I'm going to turn my levels on. And what this is saying is that for this window, okay, I expect price to turn somewhere in this window if we're going to have a 1030 confirmation. If we're going to have a later confirmation, then I expect price to turn, maybe it does this, something like this, and then it turns at that point. I expect something like that, okay? It could also be here, but price is already kind of testing this 11 o'clock upper time retracement window right here. So we kind of get this drop down and this starts to turn. Now the question is this a trade? I'm not going to go into our execution methodology, but we do have a lower time frame execution methodology. I don't know if this is a trade or not. Let's just say that it was a trade. So you take this trade, let's just, do something like this. I have no idea whether it's a trade or not. We'll do something like that. We'll assume it was an actual trade. Okay, I don't really know for sure. And boom, off we go. And actually what I can do is I can actually add my indicator. And now notice if I were back here, so actually as soon as I'm off and running, so at this point, I'm in the trade and it's starting to take off in my favor. Here I moved to break even. So the question is where do I want to exit? And I already now have this mode, or I can shoot for the moon and go for this median. This mode is 6.6 R, and then up here in the median is 9.4. Okay, so I could also take half off here. I could take the other half off here, and that gives me about a 7.5 R total trade. But let's just say we're going for mode. We come up here, boom, we hit our mode, and then awesome. This is why I love this pre-confirmation trade, because sometimes the trades can be really big and they're really fast, and there's usually these very narrow windows that are happening in a very short time window. So I'm very hyper focused right at 10:30. So from like 10:15 and on, I'm checking my levels. I'm looking to see what else is here, and if I want to get in, if I've got good strong bias. So this is the pre-confirmation setup. It allows us to get into trades that don't trigger for time and price. I do want to point this one out too. This is a really good example. And this happens a lot where price just takes off. There is no coming back for time and price. Ideally, what we wanted to see was price come back to here and then go back up. We didn't even get that. It took a straight shot all the way up to the mode level and then kind of, paused at that point and started to come down. So I would have loved to have had a time and price trade here today, but I didn't. But I had a pre-confirmation, and that's why I like this trade. It gets into some really good momentum moves.